All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Or I guess it's still good morning. I hope everybody's doing good today. First and foremost, I want to just take a minute to tell you how grateful that we are that those of you who purchased the virtual recording from our original conference, the glitch that happened there was a devastating one, but we've chosen to kind of take lemons and make some lemonade that was talked about at the conference and kind of turn this into another opportunity for more people to gather such awesome information. The conference was a huge success, we feel like. And here's one of my favorite things about Dr. Ashley Bailey, who's going to talk to us today. So she built an incredible foundation for the whole conference that all of the subsequent calls that we'll do again afterwards were built on this call. So this is the ultimate foundation for every single phase of life. And I'm so excited for you guys to get to hear a little bit from Dr. Bailey today. So, Dr. Bailey, if maybe you'll just kind of like walk us through your intro and kind of tell us a little bit about you, and then let me know when you're ready for me to share slides.
Yeah, my husband and I have a chiropractic practice in downtown Blissfield. We've been here for 17 years. I especially like working with women, young women, and I think it's a critical time period to help encourage women to get healthy because everything else um, down the road is going to be that much easier if we can, tackle some of these basic things from an early age. So that's kind of my favorite thing to do is work with young women. But yeah, my husband and I, we have been down some of these well, I've been down some of the hormonal um, uh, troubled paths myself, and him and I have experienced some infertility and we've lost a couple of babies. But ultimately, through getting myself healthier and him getting himself healthier at a more foundational level, we were able to go on and conceive three healthy children. I had three wonderful pregnancies. I've delivered three very healthy baby boys, and they are now 9, 5, and 1.5. And so, yeah, I think just the journey that we went through kind of has led me to a place where I can now, speak on it more from experience, and I kind of help coach and navigate women through some of these issues. And I think more, the more education women can receive and the more, um, you know, information they have and support, within their community. And, I can help from the chiropractic and this lifestyle thing. And, Carrie and I, we send people back and forth to each other a lot. And I think it's great to have more collaboration, even just within Lenawee County. Again, I think people are looking for alternatives. The current system isn't really working. I think we can do better. And I think it's just a great time for a woman to start taking charge of her health. And kind of where I'm going to talk about or get this started from is trying to encourage and empower women in their 20s and 30s and early 40s to get healthier now, so that when you do decide to get pregnant, that process will happen easier. You'll have a better pregnancy, you'll have healthier babies, and then also too, by getting and taking charge of your health and your hormonal health at an earlier age, I think it's going to help navigate that perimenopausal period and make that whole process easier. So, yeah, pretty much what we're talking about today is working on getting healthier, balancing your hormones at a younger age so that when you're 40, 50, 60 years old, maybe you're not struggling quite so much.
Yeah, super well said. And for those of us who are in that postmenopausal range, we are now better empowered to share this information with those behind us. At the conference, I got to share my granddaughter and my daughter, and like we have to remember how important our stories are for them too. So that was one of the other things I
Yep,
really loved about what Dr. Ashley is going to share here. All right, are you ready for me to share slides?
I am.
Perfect, let's do it. All right, here we go. Those should be up on the screen now.
Okay, so yes, the name of my talk is Before the Bump. And again, we're working on getting healthier prior to conception so that everything else can just be better and optimized. I'm going to talk about ways, very simple ways to start implementing things today in order to get healthier, improve your fertility, and just have better outcomes. We're also going to the bulk of the presentation is going to be what I've called my 8 essentials for improved hormonal health and fertility. So yeah, get your pencils and papers ready. These are nothing fancy, but they're all very simple, basic things that when done consistently can be a huge game changer when it comes to your health and hormonal health. All right. And yeah, unfortunately, kind of how this all came about is again, through my own personal journey with infertility and seeing so many of my friends and family members and my patients struggle with infertility, I don't think if you're not in it and you're not one of those affected by infertility, you don't really realize how prevalent of a problem it is. But yeah, current research shows that 12 to 15% of couples cannot conceive after 1 year of trying, and 10% of those, so 1 in 10, still can't get pregnant after 2 years of trying. If we look back to about 30 years ago in 1985, there were just 40 fertility clinics in the US. Fast forward to today, so about 30 years later, there's over 500, and there's a lot in Michigan and a lot in Ohio. And so, like, what has happened in the last, 30 years that we've gone from 40 to 500 clinics in our country? But the reality is just more and more people, I think each generation is becoming more infertile because we're missing these foundational health components. And the reality is we're getting sicker and sicker with each generation. And the ability to bear children is not a necessity. And when our bodies aren't healthy, just reproduction shuts down. So that's what we're talking about. Getting our bodies healthier so that we can optimize our chances of getting pregnant. My husband and I, again, we struggled with infertility. It took me many, many years to get to the point where I actually could conceive. We had 2 miscarriages, then struggled with some more infertility, but it was through, learning a lot, working with a team of both natural and conventional doctors that I was able to kind of get things balanced out. But, this is a journey that I went through for about 5-6 years. I don't wish it on anybody. It's very frustrating, but ultimately at the end of the day, I knew I had to get myself healthier, and I thought I was healthy, but I needed to get healthier. I needed to balance more things. And so did my husband. He did a lot of the work too. And I think sometimes that's a missing link, but we both committed to getting healthier and doing the work. And then, everything else fell into place how it was supposed to. So next, I do want to talk about a woman's normal menstrual cycle, because I think it's important that we understand what normal is so that we can recognize the abnormal. And a lot of people talk about your menstrual cycle being a report card of health. So when your menstrual cycle is normal and regular and demonstrating normal things, that helps us understand that our hormones are balanced and our health is where it should be. And when you start seeing some of these deviations from normal, then that's usually a good indicator that you're having some hormonal imbalances. And again, some of the things that I'm going to discuss can help kind of restore levels back to normalcy, and that'll manifest into more of a normal period or menstrual cycle. So what does a normal menstrual cycle look like for a woman? We talk about normal being anywhere from 21 to 35 days. That is kind of a 3 weeks to 5 weeks is technically considered normal. A woman with a normal period should bleed 2 to 7 days. Your blood should be a cranberry red in color. You should not have a lot of clotting. A woman should lose not much more than 50 milliliters of blood. To give you some perspective, that's about 3 tablespoons. A lot of women report that they lose a lot more blood than that. So that would be abnormal. And then normally your period really shouldn't hurt. If you're experiencing excruciating pain, if you're bedridden during your menstrual cycle, that's a huge indicator that you're having some hormonal imbalances. You shouldn't be missing days of work. Young girls should not be missing days of school because their periods are so difficult. That's not normal. So again, I think it's very important that young women, even at a teen, from a teenage time frame and beyond, start recognizing and understanding what normal is. So when you start straying from that, you can be like, oh, okay, some things are out of whack. And but yes, your period is your monthly report card of health, and when things are abnormal, it's an indicator of hormonal imbalance. Okay, so then what happens when a woman's period is not normal, or you go to your doctor, or even your teenager's pediatrician and talk to your doctor about having an abnormal period? Usually 9 times out of 10, you get put on birth control, and doctors will tell you that, oh, birth control pill is going to solve all your problems. It's going to balance your hormones. It will lighten your periods. If you're a heavy bleeder, get on the pill and it will make your periods lighter. It will regulate your periods. It will minimize symptoms, cramping, and PMS. If you have PCOS or endometriosis, the pill is a good solution for that. Take the pill if your daughter has acne, it'll fix that. And really, the pill is just a Band-Aid. It's not really fixing the root cause of these hormonal imbalances. And there is a lot of side effects that come along with taking synthetic hormones in the form of birth control pills. Again, it's just merely suppressing your symptoms. There's a lot of mineral deficiencies that can come from birth control use, especially long-term birth control use. When you do bleed when you're on the birth control pill, it's not the same as having a regular period. It's not a real treatment for menstrual irregularities. It's not a treatment for PCOS or endometriosis. It might minimize those symptoms, but it's not really fixing the root cause. And again, you can see from the slide, there's all sorts of side effects that come from that. I was on birth control for many years. Once I decided to get off of birth control pill, just because I knew it wasn't really serving my body well, I experienced severe acne, hormonal acne. They call it's like one of the components of post-pill syndrome. So it's a set of symptoms that women can exhibit when they get off of birth control. And I really had the post-pill acne. And so along the jawline, I had very big, deep, cystic type of acne, and it lasted forever. It scarred my face. It was terrible. But that's one of the side effects when you get off of these synthetic hormones. It can really throw your body out of whack. And but yeah, at the end of the day, if you're having hormonal problems and you're told to get on birth control pills, I would definitely encourage that you dig a little deeper, and rather than just trying to, take a pill to fix the symptoms, that you really ask yourself or have that conversation with your doctor. They may or may not understand it, but really say, okay, why am I having all these symptoms and what can I do? And again, perhaps some of these lifestyle things or working with someone like Carrie can help you balance out those things so that you're not just covering up the symptoms with the pill. All right. So now I'm going to transition to my 8 essentials for improved health and fertility, hormonal health and fertility. The first, well, let me back up. These 8 things that I'm going to go into detail with, it is not intended to be everything you need to know about every topic. I'm going to highlight some of the basic fundamental things. We could dive in really deep into a lot of things, but I think it's very important that women just try to master the basics. Again, I think too often we try to get too fancy with some of these solutions. And until you can master the basics, I really don't think you have business entertaining fancy. So yeah, we'll cover some things. Yeah, we'll just jump right into the 8 essentials. The first one is chiropractic. Obviously, as a chiropractor, I'm going to talk about chiropractic, but I really want to present it more from a place of nervous system health and regulation. As chiropractors, we do work with the spine as a means of tapping into or accessing nervous system. And very simply, when your spine is misaligned, when your spine is not moving properly, it can create a disconnect between your brain and your body, and the messages going to the brain from the body and vice versa. Those messages get distorted. And essentially what we do by adjusting your spine is restore normal motion and restore normal alignment to your spine in order to optimize nervous system function so that your brain and your body can communicate more effectively. Kind of as an aside from that, even when you look at a woman's reproductive system or the endocrine system, um, ovaries and uterus and the vagina and all those things in the pelvic area, all those body parts are controlled and regulated by certain nerves that come out through your lower back. And um, when something is out of place in your lower spine, it can create nerve distress, nerve dysfunction, a pinched nerve, and the signals that come out of the lower part of the spine going to those reproductive organs. Again, you might not get as many messages going from the brain to the body, or those messages, those signals can become distorted. And ultimately, it's going to manifest as those target tissues not working and functioning properly. And I think nervous system regulation and nervous system balance is just a foundational thing. Too many women are walking around and living in this chronic state of stress and nervous system dysregulation. And, nervous system function is not a trendy thing. It's a very basic, fundamental biological process that you must have good neurological function for everything else to happen and work properly. So that's what we do as chiropractors, is work with the spine in order to maximize nervous system function, remove stress from the nervous system so that your body can heal and repair and function how it's supposed to. And so I think getting your nervous system functioning properly then helps every other thing to work how it's supposed to too. So next, we're going to move on to the second essential, which is diet. The big thing I talk to women about when it comes to diet, nutrition, is emphasizing eating real whole foods. If you're eating foods that don't have labels, because, an apple's an apple or a steak is a steak, there's no ingredient list on there. You should try to eat real whole food like 80 to 90% of the time. Make sure women are getting plenty of protein. At the conference, we talked about kind of a good basic recommendation is 100 grams of protein. So, if you can get 30 grams of protein in the morning at breakfast, 30 grams at lunch, 30 grams at dinner, or, thereabouts, that's usually a good recommendation. And I think more and more women are becoming protein conscious. The only caveat with that is sometimes if you're emphasizing just the protein, you can neglect the healthy fats and healthy carbs. And if you're not getting enough of them too, that can also cause a lot of hormone dysregulation. So, I think they're all important. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, but try to optimize your protein, get plenty of healthy fats, healthy carbohydrates. You shouldn't fear carbs. Carbs are healthy, they're natural. You need that carbohydrate for fuel. Probiotics, I usually recommend getting your probiotics from real whole foods, such as real sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, kombucha, a good quality yogurt. Your real food sources of probiotics, you're going to get a lot more bang for your bucks there. I also want to discuss eating enough. And I think right now, a lot of women, we're kind of in a culture of deprivation, and I'm not saying it's all bad, but, a lot of women are under eating, they're under fueling, they're in this very restrictive mindset, and they're fasting, and they're, I think there's a lot of restriction that goes out there. And unfortunately, again, in terms of hormonal health and fertility, you don't want to get too restrictive because that's going to throw your hormones out of balance, and that's not a good place to be in. Um, I also want to discuss how you eat, because I think what you're putting into your body is important, but how you're eating it matters too. I would encourage women to, or people, everybody can benefit from this, but just really slowing down when you're eating. And if you're trying to optimize the nutrients in the food that you're consuming, you need to be at peace when you're eating. Too many people are eating when they're under stress, and that's not healthy. You're not going to digest your food well. You need to slow down when you're eating. You need to sit, at a table and eat your food instead of eating in the car. Um, try to be in a state of happiness when you're eating your food. If you're stressed or mad or angry, you're not going to digest and absorb those nutrients well. So just kind of, implementing more of the mindfulness when you're eating, when to eat. I encourage women to eat when they're hungry, but also um, eating when they're hungry. Um, Women do better in terms of hormonal health by eating breakfast. And I know that's kind of, again, with the fasting thing, a lot of women are skipping breakfast. But if you're experiencing a lot of hormonal problems, that would be a good thing to experiment with. Start eating some breakfast within the first hour of waking up. And that helps with a lot of hormonal regulations. And, eat breakfast if you're not normally a breakfast eater, and see what happens after a month or two of doing that. If you're seeing some changes, great, keep doing it. If you're not, then okay, maybe it's not a thing for you. But women generally do well when they eat within the first hour of being awake. Next, we're going to talk about supplements. Just a couple key components here. Again, I'm not getting overly fancy, but we're just going to talk about a few things. Good quality multivitamin. A multivitamin or a prenatal for women of childbearing years is really important. This is not supposed to be a substitute for a good, healthy, clean, whole food rich diet. It's supposed to fill in the gaps. You should also try to source a multivitamin or a prenatal with one that has folate in it, so naturally occurring folate and not synthetic folic acid. A good quality prenatal usually runs about $1 a day. You get what you pay for when it comes to prenatals. A lot of people will raise the issue, oh, well, my insurance will, I'm pregnant now, my insurance pays for prenatals. Well, the reality is the stuff that you get, these prescribed prenatals are not that good. And also, don't wait until you're pregnant to start taking a prenatal, because at that point it's kind of too late. All the stuff, kind of like your, like all the B vitamins and taking prenatals to prevent neural tube defects. Like you have to be on prenatals prior to conceiving, because that's when all that stuff happens. But yeah, if you're a woman of childbearing years, I recommend a good quality prenatal vitamin. Try to find one with folate and not folic acid. Omega-3 fatty acids are really good for hormonal health, really good for fertility, good for pregnancy, good for nursing. A lot of people don't eat enough fresh seafood to get adequate amounts of omega-3s in their diet. So supplementing with a good quality omega-3 is really good. And vitamin D3, living in the Midwest especially, most people aren't getting enough D3. D3 is synthesized from sunshine, and if you're not outside in the sun for like 15 to 20 minutes every day, exposing a lot of your skin, most people aren't producing enough vitamin D3. And that's an easy thing too. A lot of women who experience infertility just have really low vitamin levels of D3, and supplementing with a good one is an easy fix. Usually recommend a baseline of about 5,000 IUs. Some women could do more than that, especially if they're low. But that's also another thing to, like, that's a basic fundamental thing to get checked. Have some blood work done to measure your D3 levels and then kind of supplement accordingly. But a lot of women in the Midwest are going to be deficient in that vitamin. Next, we're going to talk about essential number 4, which is sleep. I think a lot of women do a lot of good things, but this is one one foundational thing that could use some more work. And again, you could be under chiropractic care. You could be taking the best supplements in the world. You could be doing all the right exercise, but if your sleep isn't ideal, like that could be a huge, huge factor um, in terms of your hormonal health and fertility issues. Um, Proper sleep affects influences your leptin hormones, progesterone, estrogen, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone. I think a lot of women are aware that we need a lot of sleep, like 7 to 9 hours of sleep, but it's crazy how many people maybe get 5 or 6. That's just not enough. And your body heals and repairs while you're sleeping. And if you're not sleeping, those things aren't happening. I'm okay with some using melatonin um, for short-term use. A lot of people in the natural community use melatonin. I think it's okay, but really it's not a long-term solution for fixing your sleeping problems. So what are some things that you can do to improve your sleep? And again, I think a lot of people know this stuff, but you just don't do it. So my word of encouragement for today is to pick a few of these sleep tips and just do it. Do them for a month and see what happens. And I'd be shocked if, upon implementing several things consistently over time, I would be very shocked if you don't start noticing improved quality of sleep. So, what are some tips? One, um, I'm a big fan of using sunshine as a way to balance your circadian rhythm. I encourage people to get outside, especially in the morning, and try to get some sun within that first hour of the sun rising. When you are in the sun, that early morning sun.
Ashley, hang on just a second. We lost you. Just a second. Your sound went out. So hang on just a second. It's like I think it must there you go.
Can you
Okay.
hear me now? Okay.
Yeah, sorry, we lost you for a second there.
Okay.
Okay, so
Yep.
okay.
Okay. So yeah, we're talking about sun exposure and being outside in the morning sun, 5 to 10 minutes every day without sunglasses on is a great way to start your day. I try to do it every day, even when it's cloudy outside, the sun is still always out. Um, So get outside 5 to 10 minutes every day. Try to be consistent with the times that you're waking up and the times that you're going to bed. Try not to deviate an hour. Like say on Monday through Friday, you wake up at 5:30 a.m. to go to work. Try to keep that wake up time within an hour, even on the weekends. And the same thing with going to bed. Say on Monday through Friday, you go to bed at 10 o'clock. Try to stay within an hour of that bedtime on the weekends, just to help keep your circadian rhythm balanced. When you start sleeping in too much on the weekends and staying up later on the weekends, that can kind of throw your sleep cycle off. So try to keep it within an hour, waking up and going to bed. Try not to nap. A lot of people wonder why they can't sleep at night. Well, maybe if you didn't take a nap from 3 to 5 every day, you'd be tired at nighttime. So try not to take a nap. Um, Try to limit, or I guess I would recommend no caffeine after 2 p.m. I do better if I don't consume any caffeine after noon. Everybody metabolizes caffeine a little bit differently, but it's no mystery why some people struggle falling asleep at 10 o'clock at night when they're drinking Starbucks drinks at 4 in the afternoon. Like that does have an influence on you. And some people are more affected by others than that. And then also trying to minimize or totally eliminate blue light exposure before bedtime, at least an hour or two before bedtime. Shut off the TV, shut off the screens, the computers, looking at the screens. So the blue light emitted from screens does influence your melatonin production. And I mean, every a lot of people do it, and you're scrolling at 9, 10 o'clock at night, and then you wonder why you can't go to bed at night. I would encourage you to at least an hour before bedtime, shut off all screens. If you absolutely have to, try, wearing the blue light blocker glasses to eliminate the blue light. Um, but again, some people are going to be more sensitive than others. Others can get away with it, but that's an easy thing. And I also think too, minimizing the screen time, especially on your phone, helps too, just to calm your mind. Um, so don't worry about the emails. Don't worry about checking your Facebook and your Instagram, because I think just that stimulus too can interfere with your sleep. So yeah, pick one or two of those things and make the change and be consistent with it. And I really think that could help with your sleep. All right, next we're going to talk about exercise. Um, yeah, the biggest thing here is just increasing activity, staying active. Exercise helps balance insulin levels, helps regulate estrogen and progesterone, even helps with testosterone. Even females produce testosterone, helps with growth hormone production. There's different kinds of exercise. Find a type of exercise that you like to do. It doesn't really matter. There's no wrong way to move your body, but the gist of this is you have to move your body regularly every day. Um, One thing I can speak about, because I personally dealt with this, is if you're if you really recognize that you've got a lot of stress, if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling wore out, if you feel like you're in this chronic fight or flight state, this sympathetic state, um, exercise or too much exercise can actually be detrimental for you. Um, I had a time early in my career where we were just working really long hours. I had just starting a new business, was very stressful, and I was trying to do some long distance running. And it wasn't much, but for me, running was too much of an additional stressor to my body, and it caused me to not ovulate. And when you're not ovulating, then you can't get pregnant. So yeah, a lot of people, women who are chronically stressed, um, should really engage in more gentle forms of exercise, like walking or doing yoga, um, as a way of just helping you get out of that chronic fight or flight, that increased stress response. So pay attention to that. If you're a stressed out woman and you're not getting regular periods, or you're suffering from amenorrhea, um, that might be something to, experiment with. Quit running, quit doing this such high intensity stuff, and see if that kind of helps balance you out. And then there's another thing, you can kind of look more into this yourself, but just want to introduce the principle of cycle syncing. And you can cycle sync your exercise to different periods of your menstrual cycle, different phases of your menstrual cycle. And so, like during your menstrual phase, so that would be like day 1 to 5. You can go on to the next slide, Carrie. We'll look at a picture of this. But yeah, like during your menstrual cycle, during the menstrual phase of your menstrual cycle, gentler forms, more low impact, low intensity exercise like walking, yoga, and Pilates are good to do during that phase of your menstrual cycle. During the follicular phase, so this is when the eggs are maturing, um, forms of exercise that are more lower impact, more aerobic, are gentler for your hormones then. During ovulation, so that mid part of your cycle where the egg is being released, things like strength training, running, higher intensity stuff is going to be better during the ovulation phase of your cycle. And then the last phase of the menstrual cycle, the luteal phase, more moderate intensity exercises like, engaging in a fitness class, playing pickleball, doing a spinning class. Um, those are good exercises to do during the luteal phase. And there are other things too you can cycle sync. You can play around with this with your diet. I've done seed cycling before, and that's where you're using different types of seeds like flax seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds. There's one other, I can't say what it was off the top of my head, but you can There's different foods that you can sync with your menstrual cycle just to kind of optimize different hormonal things that are happening during our menstrual phase. So yeah, you can sync your exercise to your menstrual cycle too. Women who are into strength training find that they get more PRs during their like right around ovulation. Because certain hormone levels after are highest, and then you're going to be stronger when you're ovulating. So like if you're trying to max out or hit a PR, like do that during ovulation. Um, all right, next we're going to talk about hydration. So this is my sixth essential. Again, this is such a basic fundamental thing, but a lot of people don't have the hydration thing mastered yet. Proper hydration plays a critical role in your endocrine, your reproductive system. Helps with hormonal transport, metabolizing estrogen, and detoxifying estrogen. It helps with cortisol and the stress response, helps with insulin sensitivity and blood sugar regulation. The last bullet point here, your cervical mucus is made up of 90% water. Cervical mucus it's the fluid that your cervix produces around the time of ovulation. And cervical mucus, they talk about like when you're looking for these indicators of fertility. Like they describe it like as like an egg white consistency. Um, and cervical mucus serves as a way to help the sperm swim through the cervix to ovulate, or I'm sorry, to fertilize the egg. So the more um, the more hydrated you are, the cervical mucus is going to be at a better consistency to help the sperm with fertilization. And if you're dehydrated, that mucus, that fluid is going to be thicker and viscous, and it can be an impairment to the sperm traveling through your cervix, which isn't good. So how much water does a person really need to be properly hydrated? I suggest half of your body weight in ounces. So say you weigh 160 pounds, half of that is 80 ounces. And electrolytes are kind of a buzzy, trendy word right now. Electrolytes are simply minerals, and you need minerals in your water, in your fluids that you're consuming to help your cells absorb the water. If you're just drinking plain water, that's not going to hydrate you. You just end up going to the bathroom a lot, and your tissues don't hold on to the water. So try to drink half your body weight in ounces of water every day. More if you're it's summertime and you're really sweating a lot. But make sure that you put minerals in your water. And you can do that simply by adding a pinch of salt, real salt, pink salt, or gray salt to your water. All those minerals are going to help your cells absorb and use the water. There are a lot of electrolyte products out there. We carry a couple in the office, but just like anything, read the labels, and they're, try to source a good, clean electrolyte process. Yeah. Next, we're going to talk about stress management. Again, I think this is they're all important, but for a lot of people, a lot of women, especially your moms that are working or women that are working and you're trying to juggle it all, I think you can be doing all the things, but if you have so much stress, that's going to shut down your fertility, your reproductive system. When your body's under so much stress, bearing children is not a necessity, and so hormones start shutting down, slowing down. Stress affects adrenaline, prolactin, cortisol, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone. And I know it's very cliche to tell a woman, just, you're very stressed out. You just need to work on de-stressing yourself. It's easier said than done. But you just have to take some things off your plate. You need to start prioritizing all the things that you do. You need to learn to say no more. If you're doing things that aren't serving you, not serving your family, you have to ask yourself, why are you doing it in the first place? But I mean, say no to more things. It's okay. It's okay. I give you permission to put yourself first. How many committees people are on that, they do it just to do it, but it's not really bringing them joy. Quit doing that. Which brings us to that last talking point, more vitamin J. Um, J is for joy, but people need to spend more time doing things that bring them joy. Life is short. Say no to things that aren't bringing you joy. Um, Find something uh, that you do and do it more regularly. It's okay to have fun. Women should not. It's a thing where I think it's sometimes people get caught in the competitiveness. It's like, who can be more busy? I'm a mom, I got 3 kids, I'm busier than you are. Well, your plate isn't as full as mine. And like, I think we need to all take a step back and just, again, try to find more calm, take things off our plate, say no to more things. And it's okay too to have your kids involved in less. Like, everybody doesn't need to be run, 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 and you're running yourself ragged, and all for what? In the end, it's going to wreak havoc on your hormones, and that's not good. And last, I want to talk about the eighth essential, which is minimizing chemical and EMF exposure. Um, so essentially, this is trying to minimize the food in or the chemicals in the foods that we're consuming and things that we're drinking, minimizing the chemicals in our environment, in our homes, in our air. Um, in terms of food, a good thing to do is familiarize yourself with there's a list called the Dirty Dozen. And so this is a list that comes out every year. And it's a list of the top 12 produce items that are most highly sprayed with pesticides. And they're usually foods where you eat the skin. Things like berries and apples and potatoes are on this list usually every year. But print yourself off a list of the Dirty Dozen so you can, when you grocery shop, maybe those foods either you wash way more thoroughly or you source organically because they're going to be sprayed less. And then there's also a similar list called the Clean 15. So those are the list of foods, fruits and vegetables that are least sprayed with chemicals, pesticides. So it's not quite as pertinent that you're shopping for organic in those items. Um, Medications, a lot of people are taking medications that can affect their hormones, things like antibiotics and let's see here. Antibiotics are a big one that can wreak havoc on your hormones and your gut health. So yeah, just are you taking medicines that you could not be taking if you made some of these lifestyle changes? How can we get people off of their medications? I think that's always a conversation. I think there's a time and place for that, but too many people are on medications that they could get off if they just improve some of their lifestyle things. We can also minimize our chemical exposure by paying attention to our beauty and hygiene products. One of my favorite places to send people is EWG.org. It stands for Environmental Working Group. And they have different databases on this website where you can, so like they have it's like beauty products database, and you get on there and and they also have like a sunscreen database where you can go on and type in whatever beauty or hygiene product that you use, and it will give you a toxicity score, with 1 being the cleanest and 10 being the most toxic, and it will list, so it might give you a score of 8 for the shampoo that you're using. You'll put in herbal essence, shampoo, whatever, and it'll give you a score of 8 out of 10. And then it will highlight all the toxic, noxious chemicals that are in your herbal essences shampoo. And then you can also find good, clean products on there as well. But yeah, think about all the products that you put on your skin. The average woman uses 168 different chemicals. Or I'm sorry, the average woman uses 12 different products every day, exposing themselves to over 168 different chemicals. And all these chemicals, when you're putting them on your skin, when you're spraying them on your body, they absorb into your bloodstream within seconds. And they all have a very, you know, the regular use of these products over time can be linked to all kinds of different things, neurotoxic issues, cancers, birth defects. And if you can clean up, the products that you're using and source more natural, homemade products, cleaner versions of them, I think it's going to really help with hormonal issues and, fertility issues as well. And then the same thing goes for cleaning products. Using really harsh cleaning products in your homes is not good for your body and good for um, hormonal health. In the kitchen, trying to minimize the use of plastics, trying to don't put your plastic into the microwave. Um, all those chemicals or endocrine disruptors and can really um, cause hormonal issues. Cookware, try to use uh, like stainless steel is good. Stainless steel products or cast iron, glass and ceramic are going to be better than some of your non-stick pots and pans, and especially once all that black Teflon starts becoming disturbed and you're getting little bits of the black stuff from your pots and pans in your food. That's not good for the system. Another thing I want to talk about is EMF, so electromagnetic frequencies. The big thing, a couple big things here is one, especially for women, is trying to get your cell phones away from your bodies. Like, don't be putting your cell phone in your breast pocket or your hoodie pocket. Your breast tissue and your pelvic organs are very, I mean, your whole body is very sensitive to that radiation. But when a woman puts it in her breast pocket or a hoodie pocket and it's against your ovaries, what is that potentially doing to those organs when you do that regularly? Or if a woman is pregnant, don't put your cell phone in your hoodie pocket when you have a baby growing and developing in there. That's not a good idea. And there's also a lot of EMF mitigating products out there that you can use on your phone or in your homes. Um, you can, if you ask me, I'd be happy to share that info with you, or Carrie and Jeff might have some information on that as well. But um, also, another thing with that, the EMF exposure is if you have Wi-Fi internet in your home, shut down your Wi-Fi router at night. That also can definitely be a factor with the sleep. Just shut it off at night and then turn it on when you wake up in the morning. But getting rid of that dirty energy in your home at nighttime when you're sleeping and healing and repairing is really important. Um, and again, there's products that you can use in your home too to mitigate the effects of the Wi-Fi energy too. But yeah, just trying to clean up all the products that you're using. I think more and more people are becoming aware of the food and drink thing, but also just paying attention to all the products that you're using on a regular basis is really important. And again, none of these things are more important than the other. They all matter. They're all pieces of the puzzle, but the more pieces of those puzzle that you can become consistent with and master and clean up or optimize, the better your hormonal health is going to be. The more likely you are to get pregnant, the more likely you are to sustain pregnancy, the healthier your babies are going to be. And the more of these things that you can implement now when you're younger, when you're in your 20s, 30s, early 40s, I think there's so much potential for it to help you as you start going through, the peri and postmenopausal phase of your life. So I don't want to stress you out by giving you too much information. But again, I just really want to encourage you to make some small changes with some of these basic things, because I think they can be really big needle movers in terms of your hormonal health and just health in general. So that is all I have for the presentation, Carrie. Um, if, yeah, I don't know if you have any questions, Carrie, that you want me to um, go into more details about, or um, are we still rolling, Carrie?
So sorry. Mine was uh-oh, where'd you go?
Oh,
Yeah, there we go.
there we go.
Sorry, mine was still muted. I apologize.
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, one of the things I took a couple of notes. One of the things I wanted to
yeah.
share that when we did a planning meeting together for the hormone conference initially, one of the things that Ashley brought to the table that I thought was so important was implementation. Like, we can't give you guys so much information that it feels impossible for you to implement. So I love how she breaks it down. And again, I can't think it's so worth repeating. All of the things that she went over are specifically designed to help during your fertility era, I'm going to call it, but they don't really change in the next
Right.
ones. All of those
Yep.
foundations are still super, super important. So don't lose that part. Um,
Yeah.
and then the other part I took a note about is I loved how you mentioned, protein, protein, protein. We all, make sure you're hitting your protein, but
Yeah.
don't forget the other sides of that
Yeah.
too, healthy fats and carbohydrates. I'm like, yeah, I can even say that I'm guilty of that a little bit in
Yeah.
practice, forgetting to like add in like how
Sure.
valuable those things are too.
Yep.
And the big thing I see in resistance with clients is you mentioned eating within an hour of waking.
Yeah.
And I don't want any of you in any phase of this to don't skip that one because, and like Ashley said, meet it with a little bit of curiosity for how it impacts you. But when you've got some cortisol dysregulation, and we see this in women all the time, when your stress hormones are really high and you're having, blood sugar fluctuations and maybe even waking up at night, that can change that dynamic very quickly by simply adding a nutrient dense, protein rich breakfast, a savory breakfast, I like
Oh,
to say for
yeah.
people, that can really help balance things out. And I understand that fasting and all of that has its time and its place and
Yeah.
its value, but
Hmm.
in the hormone conversation, I love that you brought up leptin, and how that is it for those of you who might not know, that's the satiety hormone. So if you're struggling with cravings, and that
Hmm.
often means your ghrelin is really high. And so going back to the foundations that Ashley talked about, getting that leptin signal to kind of calm down, it just gives, or I'm sorry, getting the ghrelin to calm down and leptin to come up, that helps balance that hunger signaling. So
Yep.
many women walk in our office defeated, like, I can't mitigate my cravings and it's just a me problem. Most of the time, it's a physiology problem because one of those foundations that Ashley just went over is out of balance. Um,
Hmm.
so just taking it back and simplifying it to those things that she went through. I loved that you talked about morning light. That's one of my
Yes.
favorite things. And it's so nice that the mornings are getting nicer every morning. I'm like, is it warm enough to go sit outside?
That is one of my non-negotiables, and I really use it as a tool with my kids too. I think my kids are pretty good sleepers because we do that a lot. Like my little boy, I'm out there every day, even in the wintertime, and I don't want to do it, but I know how valuable it is. So I bundle up and we get out there and we go for a walk every day
Yeah.
within that first hour. And um, that's for me, that's a big one for me. And even too in the evening, trying to be outside in the sun at dusk also is good for melatonin regulation. But if you're to do one of them, I really emphasize the morning.
Yeah.
But yeah,
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 don't underestimate it, that it's so, so, so important.
yep,
And if you want to send us at the conference, Ashley had on her table the Dirty Dozen Clean
yeah,
15 situation. I could include that in the email
yep.
too. That might be helpful for
I can
everyone.
do that.
Is
Yep.
there anyone on the call who has any questions that you'd like to ask Dr. Bailey? Anything that we can clarify for you? Anything you're excited about? Anything at all? Feel free to unmute yourself and we'll be happy to answer. And if not, if you have something come up, please don't hesitate to reach out. And if there's a question that you were like, oh, I just really needed this answered, please don't hesitate. We're happy to help. Ashley,
Yeah,
thank you so much for taking the time
you're
to do
welcome.
this and giving of yourself. We
You're welcome.
so appreciate you. You do such a great job of articulating and simplifying and, making things easily implementable. So I am excited for all of you to have the
Yeah,
information. I know that Courtney, Jeff's oldest daughter, she was like, "Can you please make sure I get the recording? I have to hear that one." So that made me
yeah,
super excited. It's great to see younger women to share this with your people, ladies, too. Okay.
yep.
All right. Thanks
All right.
again,
Thank you,
Ashley.
Carly. Yep.
All right, everybody,
Yep.
have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.